I want to thank Linda Palace for choosing that clip. It's going to have some meaning. I hope I can bring that meaning to you in just a few minutes. But before I do that, I want to say this, that you didn't want to see me up here, did you? That's okay. I'm here. But I am here. But I will say, before I start, you and I did something right together. You married well, Denton. You married very well, as did I. And before I start talking a little bit about what that clip just led us into, I'd like to first take you back to the first time I met Denton Santarelli. And to do that, I have to take it back over 40 years. Yes, over 40 years ago when I met you the first time. And in meeting him that night, it was on a beautiful Friday night, and under the Friday night lights, I was a young coach. I just arrived here from Colorado, and so it was my first coaching, actually, for game coaching here in Arizona, and I was so excited because we were ranked #1 that year. Had a great returning team at Maryville High School. And Maryville High School back then, way long time ago, was a very big school and a very, very good athletic school. And I had, playing for me, I had some great athletes. And we were ranked #1, going into a game with a lowly little high school that actually everyone read all week long was they should be on the same field with us. We've got an All-American tackle that later went to the Naval Academy, became an admiral. And we had a young man who also went to University of Arizona as an linebacker, and he later became a submarine captain. And we also had another young man who was an All-American running back for us. So we were just going to go over there and basically take Glendale High School and just kind of have a cakewalk. Problem was, all my kids read all those press clippings. And so my problem was, when we arrived, they didn't think the same way we did. And as a result, we found ourselves deep in the fourth quarter and behind. And all of a sudden, we woke up in the fourth quarter, and it was like all of a sudden the kids began to realize, hey, we're going to lose this game. These guys are going to beat us, and we're good. And all of a sudden, things started to change. I started to feel that momentum that you feel sometimes. And so finally, we had one last drive. We were just a few points down, and we thought we needed was one score, and we were going to win. And I remember calling all the kids over, and I remember looking at all of them, and I said, Timmy, my running back, I said, Timmy, it's going to you. I don't expect anybody to stop you. And I looked over at Phil Hedrick, my big 290-pound lineman, and I said, Phil, when you go around the corner, take out their linebacker. Take him out. Okay, if you take him out, Timmy will break the rest. I told Jack, I said, Jack, take out the first defensive back you see. All Timmy needs is open field. We are going to make this happen right now. Yes, I could see in their eyes we were going to make this happen. They break out, they go out there, and all of a sudden the play starts perfectly. Phil goes around the corner, just takes out the linebacker. Jack comes around the corner. He sees the first defensive back he sees, he knocks him down. Tim Hampton's in the opening. Now, you got to picture this. He's running down the sidelines, and I'm running down the sidelines. I'm going as fast as I can because I'm going, go, go, go. And I can feel the crowd behind me. The whole team was running around the sidelines. We're going to score. And all of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see something as a little skinny defensive back knocks my kid down. And Hampton goes to the floor, and that's it. We lost. I don't know if you've ever been in that situation before, at the end of a situation that didn't come out your way, but that was a long walk to the bus. It was a long, quiet night, a quiet ride back. I had all kinds of words to say, and there were no words to really describe it, except next morning when we met as a team. I said, you know, something strange happened last night. Somebody showed you exactly what's important in life. It's not how big you are. It's not how strong you are. It's not how much reputation you have. It's how much desire you have. It's how much heart you have. And I said, Timmy Hampton, that kid that knocked you down, he wanted it more than you did. Now, it took me many, many years before I found the name of that kid to be Santarelli. But I would say this, you became a leader that night, Dr. Santarelli. You didn't even know it. Because every time in practice that Hampton would loaf, I'd say, all right, where's the heart? Because you don't have it. That kid had it that knocked you down that night. And every time that Hedrick would loaf and not knock somebody back and really run, I'd say, Phil, you wouldn't even knock that kid down. He would knock you down. And so really, you were an inspiration to us, and we used you as an example. You were our leader that year, and I appreciate it because we won all these state championships thanks to you. So again, you became a leader that night. Now, you just saw a clip a few minutes ago. And by the way, I didn't choose it, even though I'm an athletic guy. I didn't choose it. In fact, Linda, I tell you, when you gave that to me, and she's standing right back there, when Linda gave that to me, I think the reaction was kind of strange, wasn't it? I didn't quite tear up, but I almost thought, you don't know what you've done. Because that clip right there had meant a lot to me in my life, and she had no idea that it had any meaning to me at all, but it did. The reason it did was because my grandfather. My grandfather was a baseball man. He loved baseball. My grandfather, at 16 years old, lied about his age, ran away to Chicago, and went to World War I and was fighting in the trenches in France. You can imagine a 16-year-old, 17-year-old logging these huge, long hand grenades, and he had a great arm, by the way, and actually being involved in the killing and being involved in the things that a young man should never be involved in at that age. But when he came back from Chicago, or when he came back, he arrived in Chicago. He had just the money in his pocket and the clothes on his back. And he'd already been shunned from his environment. He was Amish in the beginning, by the way. He'd already been shunned from his community. He had no community to go back to. And so he did what he had learned to do, and that was he learned to throw things very well, and he especially learned to throw a baseball. And so what happened was he tried out for a team. And back then they didn't have drafts. They didn't have millions of dollars. They didn't throw all this money around, have agents. He walked on a tryout, and he made the Chicago White Sox. When he made the White Sox team, he pitched for them for a couple of years, made enough money as a pitcher for a couple of years for them. Then he took that money, went back to my hometown, which is now my hometown, Indiana, and started a farm and raised a family. I tell you that because it was my grandfather that instilled the love for those two men that you just saw, and instilled the love for the game that I had. And when he always talked about, every night we get on this little Philco and we listen to the White Sox play the Yankees. And, you know, here we are around the Philco trying to visualize everything. And all of a sudden he starts telling stories of the guys that he had talked to in baseball. And he'd say, you know, those two guys are unique. They're both leaders. Let's talk about the Babe, first of all. Boy, he was a leader. He was a leader because the Babe was boisterous. He was the loudest mouth in the room, and he was always the guy that had to have a drink in his hand and a good time, and he would stay out and party all night, and then he would literally walk into Yankee Stadium the next morning, still with a drink in his hand, and hit 3 home runs. And everyone goes, wow, what an athlete. But the other gentleman you saw, the other man you saw, was Lou Gehrig, the son of an immigrant family that came across and really lived the hard knocks. And by the way, they didn't like baseball. They didn't want him playing baseball. But he played baseball anyway because he loved the game. And Lou had a great work ethic, but Lou had a great talent. Lou was not the outgoing, boisterous person. In fact, if you really think, I love the story that the New York sports writer wrote about Babe Ruth and his leadership ability. Babe Ruth was in a bar one night just having a great time. He was doing had the whole bar was under him. He was yelling. He was boisterous, and all of a sudden, this New York sports writer was at the bar, and he leaned over to a friend. He goes, I can't stand this guy anymore. He's obnoxious. And so he said, hey, you, fat guy. He said, hey, how could you deserve to be paid more than the President of the United States? Because, by the way, he just signed a $100,000 contract, the largest ever in baseball in the 1920s. And, of course, not losing stride at all, drink in his hand, the Babe rose up and said, kid, I had a better year than he had. And that really was Babe Ruth. But Lou Gehrig, Lou was a different story. The Lou Gehrig that you just met a few minutes ago, you may have seen him on Sleepless in Seattle. That may be your introduction of your generation. But in real life, Lou Gehrig was the everyday, hardworking, they called him the Iron Man. He played every game. But that wasn't his most important gift to the Yankees. That was not his most important gifts to the people who were involved in that organization. You know what his most important gift was? He was the one everyone went to when they had a problem. My grandfather told me stories of players that had told him that, you know, when someone had a problem, whether he was a bat boy or whether he was another player, they always went to Lou. And when they would sit down with Lou, an interesting thing happened. First of all, they would tell Lou the problem. They would give Lou all about what their feelings were, and he would listen, and he had that rare gift of making them think they were the only person in the world at that moment. He had the gift of making them feel that he was really listening. He wasn't waiting for his turn to talk. He was really, truly listening. But also he had that gift that he would say to them, he would ask them questions that would make them think about actually what they were saying. You see, he had the gift of empowerment to other people. What a rare, rare trait in our leaders today. We look for people like that. We look for people that we can actually know that care about us, that care what we say, that listen to us. And sometimes they frustrate us because they don't give us the answers. They're not like the babe, oh, go out there, kid, and do it this way. No, they don't do that. Instead, they empower you to find the right answer in yourself. Dr. Santarelli is one of those rare people in my life that I've met that takes that trait and has that trait. He has that rare ability that we all strive for. He is a leader that empowers others. And for that tonight, we know you're going to make, tonight is kind of the start of your final walk to the dugout, like Lou's final walk to the dugout. And that same reporter I told you about earlier that was in the bar with the babe wrote this. He said in his article the following day, after that little piece you just saw, as he walked to the dugout for the last time, Yankee Stadium filled with cheers and tears. And the babe wept. You see, tonight we celebrate, and we don't have to weep because we know he has a great life ahead of him. But I'll tell you what we do have to do. We have to cheer his contributions to us, all in this room, and cheer his contributions to all the students and all the great kids that have benefited from his wisdom and from his empowerment as a leader. Dr. Santarelli, I thank you.